Why do we come here 4 times a week and listen to lessons, absorb truths, get a lot of surprises, and if receptive to everything, feel some beautiful things going on inside? Why should you come here? Why should you be here at every meeting 4 times a week with all of your being intensely interested in knowing more and more and more, including more and more about something, a certain subject that you don't even want to know about it? Why do you come here and go against yourself? To go against your old picked up horrible ways that you've picked up from other people whose lives are nothing but ruin. On the outside they're smiling. Why should anyone come here? I'll tell you why, and you listen to what I'm going to tell you. You should be here without fail at every meeting, because when the football season is over, the football season is over. Because when you come back from that vacation trip to your hometown in Ohio, when you come back here, the trip is over. It's forgotten. It's in the past. It's in the past. And you have to live in the nowness that you came back to. Why should you be here? Because once you work real hard on that business matter that you have, and you're so delighted to look at the results of August income, once you've looked at the August income and you've tripled it, you've tripled your money in 1 month, you've got 3 times as much coming in. Pretty soon August fades out and there's September, and there's October, and there's November, and there's December. That's why. And I hope you're listening with this intensity I ask you to take on, so you will understand with your heart what I'm talking about. You'll feel what I'm talking about. And the urge and the urgency inside of you will be only one thing: to spend the rest of your life listening to what can change your life. See, what you wanted when you had that full football schedule in front of you and got so excited, both the professionals on one weekend day and the amateurs college on another weekend day, what you wanted was something that would give you a thrill, a satisfaction, something to do with your mind, with your physical body. You don't even know what to do with your physical self half the time. And when you don't know that, your mind, which is all mixed up, takes that physical body into wrong places, and you get into a lot of trouble. Why do you study the football schedule? Because it's giving you something to do for now, and then the season is over. Now listen to me. The trip to Ohio and the tripling of your income in August, you have an idea, and it's only an idea, and a foolish one at that it's going to give you something permanent. I told you, when the trip is over, the trip is over. The season is over, the season is over. And the excitement over tripling your income is over. Where are you? Where have you been? You've been no place. You've been going in a circle. Listen to me. You always come back to the same place from where you started, and you wonder why you're not getting anywhere. The squirrel in the cage, running around in that little revolving cage, he never gets anywhere, and he can't figure it out either. You're supposed to have more intelligence than low-level intelligence, represented by that squirrel. You're supposed to slow down your chasing around in your circle of life and surprise yourself with the question. I went through the whole football season, got excited over my alumni team winning, and the trip to Ohio was nice, but it's over, and the income excitement is over. Where am I going to go next to get a feeling of satisfaction and fulfillment? And that is your self-torment, asking yourself that question. There's no answer to the question on the level that you put it. Now, what you really want is something that is permanent. What you want, listen to this, we're leading into a tremendous point. That's a trip to Ohio, how impermanent is that? And the income, the thrill wears off. What you were looking for in the wrong place, and you're going to find the right place here this morning in this talk. What you're looking for, and remember this phrase now, for something that is permanent independently. Permanent independent of you. See, get it? What you do now wears away, doesn't last. Fades. Why? Because you invested in it and you have no permanence at all the way you are now. The mind has no permanence. Your dreams of fame and glory and more sex has no permanence at all, and you sense this, but you won't face it. Oh, listen to this. This is the solution to your chasing around. God is independent. Truth is everlasting. And its independence, God's truth's independence, is independent of your cravings to find security on your own level and at your own demands. I'm telling you that true independence, permanent security, permanent right kind of activity cannot be found by your mind. Oh, you remember what you did on that trip back east? You and your wife talked about it for weeks. You got a long lists of paper in which you wrote down the most economical course to get to Ohio, where you're going to stay overnight, interspersed with exciting remarks about how you're going to drive by the old famous high school that you went by. And you're going to go by and down the street where you live. Someone else lives there now. It's been some years since you've been back, but you're going to drive by it. Now, will you please join the talk and listen to what I'm going to tell you next with a special care. You and your wife are back in Ohio now. You drive by the high school and all the old memories come back, huh? You even looked in your high school yearbook to refresh your minds, and you wonder if that man or that girl is still living there or what they're doing now. You go by the high school and you go by your wife's former home and your former home, and you look at them. I want you to know that you are tormenting yourself and doing absolutely nothing but that, because there is no permanence in that, and you sense it. That's why there's always a mixture of excitement and chattering back and forth. Oh, look, they put a new tree. That tree wasn't there when I left 30 years ago. They put a new tree there, and underneath you don't know that your heart is aching and breaking. Even you know that one day that motel you stayed at in town, you're going to go up to the clerk and settle the accounts, give him the money, and you and your wife are going to fall into a strange silence when everything is ready to go except the very last act of putting the baggage and your personal items into the car and leaving the motel key on the bed. A strange silence comes over both of you as you take your items out to the car, and you right now while I'm talking to you, you sense why. Because that sense of sadness, of attachment to the past, of the excitement is all over. Now you have to go back to where you were before and meet yourself at the door of your house, wherever you live permanently now. You can't build your own world of security, independence. Your mind can only trick you, can only lead you astray, and keep you sad as you now are. There is a way to change all that, and I gave you a hint of it. The hint is, when you are with something that is not you, not your excitement over looking at the high school, college yearbook. When you're with something that is not of the mind and of memories and of excitement, when you're with something else, you have security. Then do you know something? If you want to go back to the hometown, you go back to the hometown. Maybe you have to go back for some business purpose or other. You can drive by your high school, you can drive by your old home, and there will be no possibility, no way at all that an unseen, unconscious sadness and gloom can take you over, because you are now you're a conscious human being and allied with the Spirit of truth, which is independent of your identification with yourself when you're 18 years old or 30 or 40 years old. You're free. Not now. The reason I'm telling you about lack of liberty inside yourself, so that you'll know that for a fact absolute. No more wanting the self-deception of pretending that you're happy because you see that old football field out there and you tell your wife how one time you scored three. Dear, I scored 3 touchdowns in one game. And you know what happens to you when you say that? You've dived into the pool of yourself and you swim around frantically, woefully, sadly, hoping that somehow it can last. It cannot last. God will give you something that will last, and that is the Spirit of truth. You can use any term you want. Doesn't make any difference. You want it religious, you want it non-religious. God, truth, will give you a new nature, a true nature, by which you no longer have to find happiness for yourself. Now, why don't you stop right this morning trying? It's useless. I'm telling you, now don't you go out of here, don't you forget what I'm going to say next. It's absolutely useless for you to lift one little finger to try to find happiness on your own terms. It is not going to work. It never has it? Nod your heads. It never has worked. You agree with what I said, and that will be a good start. If life was for the purpose of living just this life, if the purpose of life was just for living this life, you would be sad and you'd feel without a purpose, without a right thing to do. Well, that's what everybody thinks, that life is for this life. It's absolutely incredible, fantastic, that any human being can think that this life is for this life. It isn't. Oh, you're here physically. We conduct business. We get married. Have children. Rake the lawn when the autumn leaves fall down. We do that. That's physical life. Please let something occur to you while I'm talking, that isn't the purpose for you being here. Why do you want to have a cleaner lawn than your neighbor has and feel superior to him when that isn't the purpose of life? The tripling of your income is not the purpose of your life. You see the wretchedness of people wherever you go, because they have refused to face the fact that the purpose of life is not the purpose they have given to it. Like the trip to Ohio. Now, I gave you several examples of how people try to feel permanent, safe, secure, where nothing can touch and hurt them. I gave you examples. What's your real life states where you do it? Not a trip to Ohio. What do you? You collect something? You have a collection at home you're very proud of? Haven't you noticed when you turn away, you've been going over your coin stamp collection, butterfly collection, your books, your rare books, your book published 500 years ago, the only copy in the world, and you've got, haven't you noticed when you leave town that when you turn away from that proud diploma, whatever it is, haven't you noticed the desperation that you feel? You feel desperate because what am I going to turn to next? I can only take so many trips to Ohio. I can only look at that coin collection a certain number of times. Oh, what a point you have to ponder when you go out of here. I'll simplify and summarize it for you right now. Everything you now do with your mind and with your emotions and with your imaginations only leads to more heavy sadness and chaos. One of the most powerful, beautiful even, words I could ever give you in any talk, any time, any place is as follows. For your sake, stop what you are doing. Just stop it regardless of what the consequences are. You don't know what the consequences are in reality. You put your own consequences and you say, well, if I don't go on the trips, if I don't look at my collection all day, how will life be worthwhile? Your life is not worthwhile. You have a little bit of sincerity as I am looking at you and talking with you, not at you, but with you. You have a little bit of a wish to understand instead of push away understanding by simply admitting your inner desperation and frustration. I have some marvelous facts for you. They need not continue to exist and torment you. Now you listen to me. It is perfectly possible for anyone hearing this talk, or anyone else not hearing this talk, it is perfectly possible for anyone to fearfully choose himself over God, thinking that he's doing the right thing. I am telling that little bit of sincerity in you that you are doing the wrong thing in choosing the trip to Ohio and the stamp collection and the triple increase in your income and choosing the football schedule over getting rightly serious about your life as a human being here in this world. There really, honestly, truly is a way for you to make your life worthwhile. One condition. I'm not going to let you get away with anything. I have to be 100% true to you, and I am 100% true to you. You can make your life worthwhile on one condition and one condition only. That you don't sit there listening to this talk, fighting what you're hearing, and insisting that it already is worthwhile. Who are you trying to kid? I know your life isn't worthwhile. I know you fight and want to believe that it's worthwhile, because then you'd have to admit that you were wrong. What's wrong with that? Admit that you're wrong. I know, as I'm seated here talking to you, I know the resistance that you have, and I urge you to be, I urge you men to be a man. I wish you women to be a woman, a real woman, and not to sink back inside yourself and dive down into the pool of your memories and your convictions and pretend that that is where you're safe. If that is where you're safe, how come you're so scared listening to this talk? You are not scared. It's the wrong part of you that's scared. It's that shallow, foolish man. He's 60 years old and he's never grown up. He's still a high school kid running the football down to a touchdown and bragging to his wife about it. Now you know why the world is such a wreck, and she is in the conspiracy too. She's a little weary of hearing it after 500 times during their marriage. But still she nods patiently. What's she going to do? She feels trapped too. By the way, no woman ever need be trapped by a wrong man. God doesn't put any human being in a trap with any other human being. You have a secret life. That doesn't mean you get hostile or hateful toward anyone else. It means that you've heard this. Why don't you try doing it sometime? You've put God before any man or woman on the face of this earth. And on that condition, you shall find salvation. You will find yourself to the point that the whole world is no longer a threat or a problem to you. No one can trap you about anything. And you will have strength that you won't believe that you could have. You see, right now, human beings, before they wake up and find reality, they call their very weaknesses strength and power. How about this very elementary fact? Let's see if you can make a hurdle while I'm talking to you. How many of you were mad already this morning? How many of you were angry yesterday? How many of you are never anyplace else but a burning hostility with the forced, pasted-on smile, right? Now, when you have hostility in you, how do you feel? Are you sitting there and telling me that at your age are you sitting there telling me that you haven't once asked yourself how you feel when you're hostile? Well, you do it and prove it for yourself. Meanwhile, I'll give you a few starting hints how you feel. You feel awful. You burn. And then worst of all, you take that burning of hostility as being a permanent resource to which you can consult and draw anytime you want. In other words, in your utter delusion, you think that hostility and rage and anger, you think that they give your personality, this entity here, you think it gives you permanence. How can you do that anymore? That's not permanence. That is lack of true life. That is putting true life 50th down the list and putting wrongness first. Exercise. Starting now, but especially when you go out of here, because I want you to pay full attention to the talk and connect it with your feelings. Next time you feel hostility, you will know that you're feeling hostility. And then you will go into sudden, horrible shock over seeing what you've done against yourself. Your worst enemy cannot possibly do anything as bad to you as you do to yourself with your suppressed secret hostility and anger. Any doctor will tell you about the bad physical effects on your inner system, on your body. But how about the badness of feeling that you're trapped by yourself? See, when you say, I can always resort to hostility to feel alive, to get back at people, to blast out, you're telling yourself that you have a permanent and handy weapon by which you can push away the wicked world. No, no, no. You are the wicked world you fear. You want evidence of that? I'll give you a chance to prove it for yourself. Bring up from the depths, from the cellar of your mind and system, that horrible, terrible fear that one day you might go wild and do something awful, something that might injure you physically, something that might bring about disgrace, something that would bring a reprimand. This suppressed hostility that you're depending on to give you life has kept you a fearful person. I'm going to summarize all this right now up to this one point. Now, all of you, please, to yourself, don't raise your hand, don't not even nod your head. If you answer this question honestly and wisely, you have a chance. If you do not answer it wisely and honestly, you had better start giving yourself that chance. Question. When you're all alone and not faking success and competence and bravery, when you're all alone and by yourself, is your inner nature really one of a trembling, scared, fearful little boy or scared, fearful little girl? Now, careful, listen to me. You can only answer yes or no. Anything else is an evasion, which will injure you even more, because you'll grow more hardened in heart and mind and life. Once more, and I want you to actually answer this, please, silently to yourself. And I'll put it in another way this time. Actually, factually, all phoniness and self-deception aside, are you a frightened, terrified, sad, depressed man or woman? Yes or no answers only. Do it? Okay, we can go on from there. Once upon a time there was a good, noble king. And this king looked out over his kingdom and he saw that all this people were playing games and getting stamp collections and visiting Ohio and pretending that life was just one ball after another. But the king knew better, because he saw how much they'd fight with each other. Two so-called happy people, were all back from Ohio. They fought in the car all the way back from Ohio. He knew that. So, being a compassionate king, he decided to help them. You ever tried to help someone? What happens? They told you to run away fast, right? You know why? Because a lot of them had become fixed in their love for their hostility and for their problems, and they can't be helped. Most human beings absolutely cannot be helped at all. If you have been in this category, please switch your allegiance to God and goodness and trueness and everlasting life starting this morning. The king had a book. Let's call it the Book of True Guidance. And it had, just loaded with beautiful, inspiring thoughts and ideas to help people find themselves. And this book was distributed all over the kingdom. Visited villages, large towns, everywhere. So everyone had it. They could read the book. How to change from being a faker to a true human being. Read the book. And the main chapter of the book gave them instructions as follows. The book said, there is a place called Happy Land. Everyone in the kingdom is welcome to travel to Happy Land, where life is different, where you're not in conflict with yourself, where you don't have to keep defending yourself, where you don't have to keep explaining. Listen to this, please. The book said, in Happy Land, you don't have to keep explaining to your wife or husband or anyone else how right you are and how wrong other people are. You're free of that conflict. Notice yourself when you try to justify some wrongness that you've done. Notice that you are compelled to. It's an obsession with you to try to prove that you're right and the other person's wrong. And then you see the hostility and the agony in your obsession to prove yourself right. Drop it. Gave a lot of interesting facts on the trip. And it said, on this journey to Happy Land, you're going to encounter many, many villages along the highway. Now, as you go down the highway, it's okay to stop at the towns, villages where you go. You need a little rest there maybe. They give you supplies and you chat with a few villagers. It is just fine, the King's Guidebook said, to pass through the villages on the way to Happy Land, but you must not stop there. You must not linger there. Stop just long enough to make preparations for the next stage of the journey and get going. Thousands of people showed up on the starting day. All started together walking down the highway, happy, cheerful, that they, so sure that they were going to reach Happy Land. Went on, came to the first village, which is a big one, lots of people in. Stopped for a little bit, got supplies, took a little rest, went on. Filled their knapsacks with food, went on. Trip continued on and on, stopping at different places along the way, and then going on immediately, as was instructed to them. But something happened that they didn't count on. The villages became smaller and smaller and farther apart. See, before I get into the details of that, I'll tell you what their overconfident exclamations were in this first part of the journey. They said, I wonder why the king was so worried about us stopping here. We're permanently. We stopped, got supplies, and went on again. I wonder why he gave us that rather strange instruction that we must not linger. We're not lingerers. We want to reach Happy Land. They couldn't figure that out. All right. Now, as they went along, they went as much as 20 miles at first without a single village. So they had to depend on themselves, didn't they? And they had to depend on the King's Guidebook, which said, if you continue in spite of everything that happens to you, in spite of everything, he that endures unto the end shall be saved. Everyone who continues will reach Happy Land. Well, human beings are pretty awful. Human beings have a weakness and a hypocrisy that the average human being never discovers in himself throughout the whole of his life. That's why you see that old man and that old lady. You see the fear in their aging faces. And you see their violence in screaming out, if we just get that law passed, then we'll all feel secure. You know that man is terrified just going around saying that. We've got to get this law passed. Sign our petition, please. Went along the journey. And as the villages got less frequent and smaller, they began to get terrified. I have to interrupt to give you a spiritual application of what I'm talking about. When any man or woman starts along the true trail, obeying at first the orders of God to go all the way to a new nature, dark forces, satanic spirits immediately attack. They don't attack a person he already has. Satan doesn't attack anyone he already has in his power. And therefore, people under the power of satanic spirits say, what do you mean? I'm a free, happy, good person. What are you talking about spirits for me? Touch them in the wrong place and they scream and holler and hate you. They began to get scared because they stopped before and the friendly people greeted them, brought them supplies. Now there are less supplies, less villages. Do you know what happened? I'll tell you. If you've been in truth studies for a long time, you'll have observed very clearly for yourself what always happens. Because most people are not going to make it. Most human beings want to fight God in order to worship themselves, not knowing that they're doing that. They got so scared that they pretended that they had forgotten the royal king's orders that they must not stop at any village but to move on, and they settled down. Because they were terrified at the fact that they might have to go 1,000 miles without... This is significant what I'm going to tell you. They were worried that they might have to go 1,000 miles without human help. Since when have you ever had human help of any spiritual value at all? Never, and you never will. The trouble is you've settled for human help. Someone who will share your self-deceptions. You've got a man or a woman or a group who all tell the same lies to each other and call the lies truths. All of those club members, when they go home and when they get home, they fall into a fit of depression and sadness and never question it. You will begin to do that. Well, what happened is what always happens with the vast majority of humans who start the pure spiritual trail. They settle down. What does that mean? They settle down in the village, refuse to go on. If you don't reach heaven, you haven't reached heaven. If you haven't reached an authentic transformation in the kind of a human being you are, you haven't reached it. You've either made it or you haven't made it. They stopped and didn't make it because they settled in the villages, wanting to settle for human comfort and human company, instead of for following the advice of God to go all the way. This means this. When you go on past the last village, and you don't know what's ahead of you, when you go on in spite of all the temptations to stop and have friends who call you by your first name, when you go on, that the spiritual significance of that is you leaving yourself behind. Leaving the old world behind. Remember how confident they were at the start? Oh, sure, we're going to make it. I'll probably be there within 6 days. I don't need to come to every class. I didn't need to come to the first one. I already knew everything the man said up there. Why don't you try sometime, all of you, noticing what happens to you when you go to bed at night and the world is temporarily set aside, so you can't chatter to your friend, you can't lose yourself in the football game or that marvelous dinner you have planned. Why don't you try inviting a little sincerity to see how bad you feel when you're all alone at night, and just notice it, and don't you dare try to explain it. You just know that it is there, and remember everything else you've heard in this talk. Now, that turning and tossing and that anxiety, all suppressed, of course, all that has to be left behind. No more self-comfort. No more going out of here and saying that you know more than what you heard in this class. How can you say that when it isn't the truth? And you know it isn't, and I know it isn't. And I wish you'd give some thought to the fact that God knows when you deceive yourself. God has given you a way out of yourself. And it consists of following the instructions of the guide booklet, that you go all the way regardless of what your feelings tell you that you're going to be insecure. By staying in the village, you stay insecure. Is there one of you here hearing this talk who wants to give me a long list of how brave you are? And you'd like to tell me that nothing bothers you, that you're naturally courageous, that all the psychological and religious books you've read and all the lectures you've come to, that has put you above this world. Nothing bothers you. You're in charge. Well, let me tell you something. Every time you have to tell yourself and your wife and your friends that you're in charge, you're telling yourself a falsehood that is keeping you the terrified human being that you are. What would be wrong with you saying that the fact, proven at nighttime and every time you get rageful, every time you get hostile, you're proving that you're living in the wrong place inside of yourself, saying I'm living in the right place. The fact is this: God's guidebook, spiritual instructions, tell you what to do, and you have to do it. You can't listen to yourself because you've lied to yourself all your life, and look what a wreck you are right now. Right now. Are you eager to talk with the person next to you and explain something, a way that you've heard? Why do you want to do that? Because your tension over hearing the truth is more than you can bear, and you're trying to dilute it by talking to someone else. Are you going to do that when you go home today? May God have mercy on your soul. You have been given in clear, simple language. You've been told the problem and you've told the solution. What are you going to do with it? Well, let me tell you something. You'd better listen to me. Your eternal destiny depends on what you do with what you've heard in this class here this morning. You've come here. You came to this room. And those of you listening in Florida and Australia, hearing the tape on this talk, you have heard the tape. There's no way you can take a middle ground. Don't you try. You're not going to succeed. You either love what you've heard and want more of it, or you reject it and want more of yourself. You see why it's so important for you to know that you've been nothing but a wandering derelict all your life? You must start with that so that you can dislike what you've been. And when you dislike what you've been, you've followed God's instructions to never mind the villages and settle down. You go all the way. And I will tell you that God himself guarantees you, if you will go through the pain of seeing that you've had it all mixed up, if you would simply say to your wife, say to yourself, say by your attitude, not necessarily with words, I have made the most horrible mistake of my life. If you do that, the angels will sing, speaking in allegory. The angel will rejoice because there is one sinner. There is one sinner that has finally come to the point of repentance. And from then on, you will know better than to stop anywhere. You'll want to go all the way. And you will know that the Spirit of truth itself will go with you. You will know it because it will be with you. And you'll be an entirely new kind of person. And you'll be a good force for this world and for yourself. And you'll be a soul that has an everlasting existence. Good morning. Let the light fight and all will be right. That's a basic theme that we're going to talk about, and something that when you understand it so thoroughly that you live it, you will be a new man, a new woman. We're going to talk tonight about badness, human badness, about evil, psychic evil, because it's very necessary for you to become very well acquainted with it. Now, just being a bad man or bad woman, someone who hurts others without knowing it, that doesn't mean that you're acquainted with evil. It means you are unconsciously bad. And I gave you the rule before, and I repeat it now, that unless you do understand evil thoroughly, know all about it, you can't know anything about God. If you do know about evil, you can know about God. From now on, at this point in the talk, you're going to do something deliberately you've never done before, which is that you're not going to be afraid of anything you hear. Because if you're afraid of what you hear, that's evil. That's bad. If you're afraid of the truth, that's bad. You're in this room now. You have a great chance to do what your heart wants to do, what your mind doesn't want you to do, which is just simply understand what you were all about. And you can't ignore human corruption and find out what you're all about. You have to simply examine it, explore it. Do it scientifically. You don't have to be afraid of a single thing that you hear. And already, some of you, as a defense, you're so defensive. That's what's keeping you so sick and scared. Some of you are already saying, I'm not afraid. Why did you have to convince yourself that you're not afraid? You had to do it because you are afraid. This is the place where you can be gloriously honest about the kind of a condition you are in inside. Be gloriously honest about it, and absolutely no one will condemn you for it. But you had better stop condemning yourself for it. See, you think that you have goodness as opposed to your badness. You don't have. And when you slip from your self-described idealistic person that you're kindly and you're spiritual, when you slip from that, you call yourself bad. Having the image of being good was bad in the first place, so there's nothing but badness on both sides. So in this talk tonight, which can be of enormous help for you, and you know how badly you need to get inwardly healthy, because you are not inwardly healthy. Aren't you going to start right now to allow that help to come in by admitting that it's not there already? I told you don't have to be afraid of what you're going to hear. Once upon a time, there was a great illness in the land, just as there is in this land and every other land. All the people of the country was sick and worried and corrupt. And because they were sad, they were bad. And they hurt each other. And nobody in this whole country understood why people were that way. Why evil had taken over the whole nation, the minds and the bodies of people, and they hurt each other physically. Nobody understood it. This, by the way, is the condition of every country on earth, every city on earth, every town on earth. Everybody is bad and nobody understands it. So this went on for a long, long time. Finally, one spiritual scientist decided to go all alone. You have to go all alone in your inner search. He decided to go on the search way back in the mountains to find out were these poisonous vapors, and it's good to describe evil as that, where these poisonous vapors were coming from, because nobody understood their origin. So he went all alone, worked hard, made a lot of blunders, a lot of mistakes, but he finally found out what was the cause of these evil vapors that had taken over the whole country. What it was a very small plant, obnoxious plant, poisonous plant that was sending fumes. It exuded fumes that it sent all over, and they reached down to where the people were and made them sick. Nobody had found that out before because the plant was so innocent looking, very quiet little plant living out under the trees. Nobody suspected that it was the source of their sickness. When they found out, they uprooted the plant and the fumes ceased to come down and the people became healthy. I'm talking, of course, about humanity as it is now. You must admit to yourself, and please do, right now, that you don't understand the origin, the source, and the continuing attacks of what we can call evil, badness, hurt feelings, whatever. You do not understand where they come from. And to prove it, you don't know how to stop them. You haven't the slightest notion how to stop having bad feelings, how to stop getting mad, how to feel that you're singled out by fate, by life, for special persecution. You can't understand how happiness has evaded you in spite of everything you have done to try to be happy and avoid the badness of evil. You just can't figure it out. Now, that is the perfect state for you to be in here tonight. Just to know that you don't understand anything about yourself. Look, please. You don't understand. Just admit you don't understand. If you lie, you'll get nothing out of this talk. And you'll get nothing from God Almighty. You'll get it from another place because that's where you have assigned your allegiance. See what I just did? See what we did already? We exposed evil. The unconscious forces that can do anything they want with you. Now you just sit there and try to deny what I said. Badness can do anything it wants with you anytime. How many times did already, just today, just one day out of your whole life, has bad news come to you in some way, something you didn't want to hear, or you saw something, or somebody said something to you, and you got nervous and angry? How many times already did? Now, oh, how nice. We've established the fact that you need an awful lot of help. Oh, but I have to probe something. You know you need a lot of help. Where have you been all these years? You certainly haven't been here at New Life, which has been here for 15 years. You haven't come here. Well, simple. I need help, right? That's the truth. I haven't sought out help. Doesn't that shock you? That if you're hungry, you go to the store, go to the cafe and get food. You're anxious, a certain part of you is eager to get free of pain, and yet you haven't come to any place where the pain could be put aside. Of course, the great pain remover is God Himself, truth itself. Oh, I see. I can answer that question for you. You thought that you were being spiritual. You thought that you were contacting something higher than yourself. But since you haven't, oh, that's pretty evil. There's been some self-deception there somewhere, because it is possible for you to contact God if you want to. Let's find out why you haven't. Evil just now in your present condition and level, evil is 1,000 times more clever than you are. I already told you it can fool you anytime it wants. It can make you mad, make you excited one minute, depressed the next, right? Are you being honest with yourself as we're going on this? This is the only way you'll get some. If you lie, no good. You won't get anything. You'll have wasted your evening. You'll have wasted the evening just as you've wasted your whole life. Now let's see what kind of an argument you have to say that you haven't wasted your life. Why do you have to argue at all? Because you know you have, and I know you have, and God knows you have. All right. Evil, badness, sin, iniquity, satanic forces, all the same, have declared war on humanity. They have got out the big guns and have by the way, this an eternal determination to destroy men and women, human beings. Because satanic forces hate men and women because they have a possibility for finding God, and that's the last thing evil forces want you to do. I said that evil forces don't want you to find God. Doesn't it jolt you just a little bit to realize how well they have succeeded so far? Doesn't that jolt you a little bit? This talk I'm giving you is proving itself as I'm going along, and you know it. And I've required you to do your part of the work, and simply being an honest human being, wanting to know the facts instead of wanting to maintain your present sick position. If you maintain your present sick position, you'll be as sick as you go out as you came in. The purpose of all of you coming here is to get healthy by hearing spiritual, healthy facts. All right. Evil forces, which certainly do exist, have declared war on you, and you, and you. And I'm going to tell you something that these forces don't want you to know, which is all of this talk, by the way. Evil forces want you to fight back. When they present troubles to you, when they invade, this will become clearer to you as we go along. When they invade you, brings along some circumstance, some event, they want you to fight back. You've done this. Listen to this. Any form of sour, wrong, negative emotion, reaction, word, feeling, anything you've written down on a piece of paper, any form of negative feeling is trying to fight. You're trying to fight. This means that all you ever do is fight evil. And why do you do that? Because, are you ready? Because you're a part of it. You're a part of badness. Well, haven't you known since you were a little girl, a little boy, that it's wrong to fight? Wrong for you to fight. You know it's wrong for you to fight. Your face gets all red, you clench your fist, your blood pressure goes up, you scream at someone, he screams back at you. Don't you dare tell me you don't know that it's wrong to fight anything. Remember how I started the talk? The point that the light will fight for you and then all will be right. Oh, but you've got to let it do it. You can't fight anymore. You can't fight for a single right anymore, what you call your rights. You can't fight for your position. You can't fight for your so-called self-respect. You can't fight to have anyone continue to like you or like you in the first place. Why do you ever battle for anything? Well, you don't need to, but the reason you do is because you think you have to. You think you have something to protect. Your good name, your income, for heaven's sake. I have to go back, in order to go on these higher things, I go back to the elementary ones. You don't even know the elementary ones. Money. Very important to you, isn't it? It dominates your thoughts. What other people think of you, that dominates your thoughts. All this is worldly trash. And you haven't even begun to give that up so you can go on to higher things. Now, here is one of the subtle tricks that dark forces play on you, will play on you as I'm giving you this talk. So we're going to expose dark forces even while I'm talking to you. I have said, and I repeat to you now, you don't have to fight for yourself. Just go about your own way. Be alone if necessary. Don't quarrel with anything. Don't argue up in your mind. You don't have to do that. See, you didn't know that you could have been a good, honest, decent, spiritual human being. You didn't even know that when you came in that door. I'm telling you now, you can. You didn't know it. All you have to do right now and forevermore is to be good. Good person doesn't quarrel, doesn't argue, doesn't sneer, doesn't hate. Right? Now, did you hear what I said? All any of you ever have to do, now that you've heard this, obey it. All you have to do is be a good person. Oh, now I have to tell you the little trick that sneaks into your minds and worries you. Now, you said, sir, giving that talk, you said that all I have to do is be good and decent, lead a little casual life. Don't try to be important. Don't try to hang on to friends. Why do you hang on to your friends? Because you're insecure. That's evil. And it's evil for you to try to hang on to anything, because God doesn't require you to hang on to anything, because He gives you everything heavenly up there. Now, see if you can follow this very carefully. When you're instructed that you don't have to be anybody, you can just be a quiet, nice little person living her own life, nobody pays any attention to you. When I tell you that you can and must reach this spiritual height, and it is a spiritual height, you don't bother other people anymore. When I tell you that, one of the evil vapors coming from evil place origins is this. Oh, you're so worried, or rather your false nature is worried about that happening to you, and you bring in wrong words, and I'm going to tell you what some of them are. You say, well, I don't want to just be passive. I can't be passive. I can't just sit home alone and read books all the time. I've got to live. I've got to get involved in life. I want to be a good person and help others. No, you don't want to help others. You've never wanted to help others. You just want the pretense that you're helping others so that you can say, I exist as a good person, which means you're evil. Where did you ever get the notion that you have anything good to give to anyone? Where did you pick up that lie? Drop it. You don't have anything good. You have something good to give to someone else. I give you permission to shake all you want at the revelations that you're hearing, so that you can get rid of the suppressed shakings that you have inside of you. The point I'm making is this. You've done a very evil thing in saying, I don't want to be alone, be passive. You see, you identify, You know what you have done. You had better listen to me, and you had better be very careful from now on. You have described the spiritual state as being a bad state for you. It is a spiritual state to be above this sick world, to not go around bothering people under the pretense that you're helping them, that you can contribute something to society. And as always, your little egotistical nature is worried that you'll run down, that like a top will spin down and wear out. How many of you are already pretty worn out? Yeah. You know you are. And I'm doing something for you tonight that you've never ever done for yourself because you didn't have the intelligence to do it. And I don't have the intelligence. It's passed on to me just as I'm passing it on to you. So I'm not subtly boasting. This will give you a new kind of energy in which you understand both God and Satan equally. I know you still don't want to do the hard work of thinking that everything you've done is in vain, but I'm telling you here tonight, and you're not going to forget what I'm going to tell you. And if you're wise, you'll come back and hear more. The truth is, if you would simply obey spiritual instructions from the high place, if you would simply obey it, you would fall apart with your false, bad life, and you would be born again into a new kind of life. That's the fact. But you have to be very brave as you can be, and just a little bit is enough at the start. You have to be very brave in understanding that you don't understand at all, and any hostility, listen to me, any hostility, any resistance, any argument, any sneering, any hating against what you have heard here tonight will keep you a miserable, sick human being, and that is what you have chosen for yourself. So don't you dare have the nerve to complain anymore when the evil from the mountains comes down and invades your life and makes you scared. You have no complaints, not one, after hearing this talk tonight. So please have the decency to turn in the right direction and know that if you turn in the right direction, the very moment of that turn will be a new feeling inside of you. Now, I know that this sounds tough to a lot of you. Sounds if that man must get some kind of pleasure out of saying mean things. It is not that at all. And I want you to set aside any thoughts that you have along that lines, because they are false, and you yourself know they're false. How nice, how marvelous it would be for you personally, each one of you personally, to just sit here and say, well, what do you know? That tough stuff, I don't understand it, but I do know one thing about it. It sure hits home. That man is talking about me in a way that I've never, ever wanted to talk to myself about myself, because it's too uncomfortable. Isn't it nice that New Life Foundation will help you dig down in the way that you should dig down? Aren't you already, in just half of the talk so far, aren't you very glad and grateful that you came here tonight? Aren't you glad that God won't let you get away with it anymore? For your sake? So that you can turn the corner? Now, I'll tell you what you have to do. This is a lot of fun. Having heard about evil and about how good can destroy evil if you don't fight yourself, What you have to do is spend the rest of your life repairing the damage you've done to yourself and everyone else. Isn't that nice? Huh? Oh, I know the part you didn't like. You didn't like the last part, the damage you've done to everyone else, including yourself. Oh, how about a little personal quiz here? State your age, whatever it is. State your age to yourself. Don't have to tell your neighbor. How have you treated yourself for those, 30, 40, 80 years? How have you treated yourself? Pretty shabbily, huh? Well, you wouldn't let other people treat you that way, yet you treat yourself that way. Isn't that weird? How have you treated yourself? That means, what have you allowed to be the dominating forces in your life? And you know very well what they are. Always shuddering over something. Always looking for a friend to give you a hand, and the friend is just as sick as you are. How have you treated yourself? Pretty miserably, right? Tonight, this night, is the turning point in which ill health will start to fall away and real spiritual health will come in its place, and you will be able to feel it as it rises inside of you. There's a story about a young man who was a boy. He went outside town a little bit, and there was a directional sign that directed tourists and travelers how to reach town. And as a boyhood prank, he took the sign and turned it in the opposite direction. And for 2 or 3 hours, he hid the bushes out there, watched the people see the sign and go in the wrong direction, and he'd laugh. Thought it was great fun. Great trick. See, evil is so evil you can't believe how evil it is. In this case of this boy, he thought it was great fun to lead people astray because he had done it. I did that evil. I have a definite independent self. I did it. Well, he grew up being an older boy, and when he got even be 20s, he thought back of the shabby little trick that he'd played when he was younger, and he really felt sorry for what he was doing. He understood what I just explained a little bit to you. He understood how childish and bad he was to get fun out of hurting other people. Wasted their gas, their time, caused them inconvenience, confused them. He made up his mind he was going to repair that damage by being, from then on, a spiritual adult. Now, you have led everyone astray, everyone you've ever met, just because you have first led yourself astray. The inner nature has to express itself both inwardly and outwardly. Now, you won't think it's fun anymore to tell lies to yourself about your inner nature. Not only won't be fun, but it will be a different kind of a right feeling to actually know that you have actually caught yourself pretending that it was a good thing to have power over someone else, or to criticize someone else, to hate someone else. All right. Yes, absolutely. You can continue to ally yourself with slandering other people, with scowling at those who don't agree with you. You could go around with a petty, childish, negative spirit, and you can drown in your own sick mind and emotions, which you will. That need not be the case in any human being who will simply listen. For heaven's sake, tonight, will you please do one thing you've never ever done, anytime, any place, which is to listen to something that is higher than your neurosis. If you don't, so long. Goodbye. You have been told. Oh, when you're told the truth, when you decide to go away because you know better, you know more than God himself. When you do that, what happens is you have cut yourself off from God permanently. I don't say that to shock you. I hope it produced a shock, but that wasn't the motive. The motive was to tell you the facts, that you've cut yourself off from God. If you don't find God in this life, what's going to happen to you in the future? If you don't have God, let me tell you who you do have. You have yourself. Okay, tell you what. You try to save yourself. You try to tell yourself that in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now, everything is going to be okay with you. Go ahead. Consciously try it. I say consciously, not unconsciously, because you've been doing that unconsciously all the time. Consciously try to convince yourself that you, as you are now, have a happy future. Go ahead, try to convince yourself. It won't work. Oh, talk about getting rid of the fumes. We're doing it tonight, aren't we? We're exposing all those little tricks that you have allowed to come in and keep you the way you are. Now, one of two things and one of two only, and you will never ever forget, none of you will ever forget what I'm telling you now. You could live the rest of your life with yourself as you have done in the past. Yes, you can. Absolutely you can if you wish that. You can live the rest of your life living with you and you only, or you can find out what it means to live with God, which is a reality. It means nothing to you when I say that, because you live only with yourself. But I'm telling you what the blissful alternative is. It was free for you to live spiritually right here in this life. You can live with God, and God will be your guide, and God will do the fighting for you instead of you trying to do it for yourself because you get a false pleasure out of it. No, I'm not going to let you get away with it. No, we're going to do it one more time. Effective as of right now, you have a choice right in front of you. The path. Here is where the path divides. You can go out of here lying to yourself and say that you've already found God, or that you're going to find God in your way, and that man isn't going to intimidate me. You said I was intimidating you. I didn't. I don't intimidate. I don't have to intimidate you. You have to intimidate other people in order to feel a sense of self. You can continue to live with yourself, or you can get down on your knees, either physically or mentally, immediately. Right now in your mind, or later on when you can get down on your knees and pray to God that He will show you how to choose Him over you. You're never going to choose God over you. Don't you understand this? All you are is you. Well, you tell me something else that you are besides you. Go ahead. You can't do it. Yes, you know what I'm talking about. Yes, you do. I know when you know what I'm talking about. What do you have besides your usual ways of getting excited over the rays, getting excited over telling yourself that everything is going to be all right? Why don't you just confess that you have nothing but darkness and struggling in the dark? Please, I assure you, nothing bad will happen to you. To the contrary, everything good will happen to you if you will admit that you're outside the kingdom of heaven. And everything outside the kingdom of heaven is evil. And everything that is evil hurts and hurts bad. What do you think of the purpose of this talk is? Well, you don't know, because you don't have any help in yourself at all. The purpose of this talk is to release you from your delusions which cause pain. If you free yourself of your delusions, you won't hurt anymore. Well, has there just one of you in this room tonight admitted that you hurt and hurt bad, and stop there? The reason you have to stop there is because you'll start lying again. I feel bad because, there's only one answer after the because. I feel bad because I prefer that to freedom, to life, to God. I like to feel bad because it makes me feel real. And besides, it's the only thing I have ever known in all my 30, 60, 80 years. The dark forces, the evils of this world that are coming down to everyone, have a fatal flaw. I hinted at it before, but I'm going to tell it to you again in another word. The evil that has clutched you has a fatal flaw. And that fatal flaw is you can find out about them. You've been doing so tonight. By the way, what have you been doing with the information that you've been collecting tonight? It's been kind of shocking to you, because you see, it's so childish and so dishonest to think of evil in connection with someone else. How many of you would like a real rough, tough work exercise for the next week? Okay? How many of you will do it? How many of you will request heaven to give you strength to do it? All right. For the next week, next 7 days, the only evil you're ever going to think about is your own. Oh, you've got a lot to think about, huh? Of course. Well, now, you know why that is going to be healthy. Because you know how you always have to point the finger to someone else. Someone else is always wrong and I'm always right. That's why you stay sick and obnoxious. That's why you stay obnoxious and you don't even know you are. It's about time you started to wake up and face the facts. That's why we don't pull words here. Because you either take it or you leave it. If you take it, oh yeah, sure, it's going to be a rough voyage for a while, and you'll sometimes feel sorry you ever left port, the sea town there. You'd be wishing you were back there. But let me ask you, you start on the spiritual voyage, and you get 10 miles out to sea and it gets rough. That is, you're fighting truth, and so it hurts a lot inside. Once you succeed with the whole voyage, the hurt goes away. But the point is this. Suppose you get out this voyage, spiritual voyage, and you say, I'm going to go back. I don't want to go anymore. That man's insulting me. He's hurting my feelings. The man telling you the truth that could save your soul, and you say he's insulting you. If you do turn your boat around and go back to port and the town there, the surfside town, and you go back to live there, what's it going to be like? You know very well that town is populated by vicious pirates. You know what I'm talking about. Every time you refer to yourself, you refer to a pirate. Someone who betrays you. So you see, there's no point in any human being ever quitting and going back. In other words, don't be a bitter quitter. You stay on the voyage, and I tell you, the experiences you'll go through, the storms and the waves and the fear of destruction, but you listen to me. You listen to me now instead of listening to your warped mind. When I say you, I mean everybody in the whole world. If you will stay where the instructions are, if you will take the complete course in navigation, after a while, the storms will decrease just a little bit. That means your fears will fade just a little bit. And then their place will come more of a feeling that you are controlling the boat instead of outside forces controlling you. You know that that's an apt illustration, don't you? The waves and the winds and the lightning and the thunder, they control your life, don't they? Anybody who out there who wants to make you feel bad or feel mad can do it, correct? You can't stop being stormy inside. But if you stay on the boat, that is, if you come back to these instructions and read the books, little by little, you will understand that God himself, listen, I'm speaking very sacredly now. It will be clear to you that God himself was with you throughout all of that storm. You didn't know it then because you wanted to do it yourself. You wanted to call yourself the captain of the boat. And you wanted to direct that boat toward Treasure Island where you could get all the gold and all the people would admire you, the richest woman in town, the most popular man in town. You wanted to use your life for self-glorification, and don't you deny it. You know how much vanity you have in you. And if you don't know it, it's a very easy test. Every time you get your feelings hurt is because your vanity was thwarted or knocked down. You wanted to use your life for your own ego-serving purposes, to get what you thought you needed. So your friends flock around you and smile at you, and they go places with you, and you have dinners together and watch television. So you have all these boyfriends, girlfriends, all these associates. What in the world are you getting from them? You're getting from them the same thing you are giving to them. One human being wrecks another. What do you expect? A pack of wolves. Human beings are nothing but a pack of wolves. And don't you dare deny that. You deny that at your peril. Pack of wolves, each turning on the other. Here in this room, if you will simply listen, and if you will know that you didn't like the talk, if you will simply know that you didn't like the talk, if you knew that much consciously, and then find out why you didn't like it, you'd be on the way upward. But if you prefer to stay asleep, stay unconscious, and sneer and hate, then you will have the exact reward that you have demanded, which is lifelessness, which is eternal doom. God said that before I did, you understand? I'm just passing it on to you. Or if you will have the decency to listen to something that is not a part of your present nature, then instead of doom, you can have authentic eternal life. You think you have it now, but every time you think about it, it puts you into terrible, tormenting doubt. You will have eternal life and you won't have to think about it at all. You will know it because God is behind the knowing. Good night.